What's up, everybody? This is the Friday NBA Insiders TV show. Joining me after technical difficulties, the one, the only, Drew Dinkmeyer, your bottom right, and Dave Loughran at the top right. And we're going to be talking about some NBA stuff today. So good stuff. If you haven't already subscribed to the or checked us out on Twitter, feel free to follow at Insiders DFS, and always feel free to ask those questions in the chat. We'll make sure to get on it. Today goes. We were talking earlier, Drew, and they couldn't hear you anything you said. So as far yeah, no, it was important. As far as how you're feeling today, you said that you're not nervous. You feel okay.
Good all week. I felt a little bit locked in this week, and I feel when I played around with salaries on a couple different sites, I felt pretty good. Oh no, they're saying I got cut out again in chat now.
Can they hear? Can they hear you now?
Can you hear me now? So it's something to do with that shot.
Yeah. Okay. I'll figure it out. Don't you worry. I'll figure it out.
All right. Cool. Thanks, chat.
When Dink is full, his audio is fine. So hopefully, can you hear Dink now? Dink, just do a test for us real quick.
Test. Basketball Jones.
Okay. All right. Now do your test.
Test. Basketball Jones.
Let's see if they can hear you.
You guys got that?
Okay, so they.
All right, let's roll with it.
Okay, well, they can hear you now. I don't know what's happening, but we'll just go with it. All right, so your feelings tonight are good.
Yeah, I feel good about things.
Okay. Dave, your feelings tonight.
I feel pretty good. I think a lot of the injury news has cleared itself up, but there's a little bit of information I'd like to have had already. It looks like Curry's supposed to play, right? Which I'm not too happy about, to be honest with you. I would have loved to have plugged Harrison Barnes in there. Another interesting thing, I know a lot of people play on FanDuel. Trey Burke isn't available on there tonight, which is kind of disappointing because his minutes are supposed to go up. The guy put up 11 points in 12 minutes the other day. So, he's minimum salary on several sites, but I know, being how big FanDuel is, it would have been nice to plug him in there and fit a couple extra studs in. But aside from that, yeah, I feel pretty good too. I think there's enough value out there to construct some solid lineups tonight as well.
So, do we know about Trey Burke as far as his minutes go tonight? I liked him. I liked him a lot on Wednesday, but obviously we didn't know what his minutes were. He got 6 minutes in the first, 6 minutes in the second, and did real well with them. Do we know what his minutes load is gonna be tonight?
They said it's going to go up. I'm expecting around 20 probably. I don't know. I could be off, but I would expect 20. And in 20 minutes, look, I did a little bit of math. So he attempted 8 shots, which is 1 shot every 1.5 minutes. Assuming he plays 20 minutes, and this is obviously prorating those minutes, he'd be taking around 14, 15 shots. And as someone like him, that's enough to meet value at a minimum salary play.
Drew, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think 20 minutes is a fair expectation. And I think if you're playing on a site that doesn't deduct for missed field goals, I think, the kind of gunner mentality that Burke has helps. I think the key for Burke there will be paying attention to this Gordon Hayward injury news. Because, look, if Gordon Hayward can't play tonight, regardless of what they want to do with Trey Burke's minutes, he's going to be forced into action more because they don't have anybody else who can handle the ball.
Absolutely.
So if Hayward's out, I think that minutes estimate on Burke can approach 25 to 30.
Absolutely.
And Hayward got through shoot around, but then they went and they sent him for precautionary X-rays on his bruised kneecap, and we haven't heard any updates since then. So I think that's the thing to pay attention to there.
And not only that, Hayward shot 1 for 17 the other night. I mean, that was a nightmare of a performance. So if if that had anything to do with, if his injury had anything to do with that performance, which I'm assuming it played a role in it, I don't see why they wouldn't hold him out tonight. They're 1-12, right? So I don't see much point. They're talking about, tying him up with a big contract and all that. So I don't see why you would take the risk with it. Kind of like the Michael Carter Williams situation where it was probably a minor injury, but they don't want to run this guy out there and risk further injury with a team that's not going anywhere anyway. So I'd actually be surprised if he plays tonight, even though he did go through shoot around.
The latest two things that I got on the injury front through Twitter right now, Aaron Falk, who writes for the Tribune, just said that Corbin says Gordon Hayward is likely to play. And then I saw Marcus Thompson from who covers Golden State says Curry still hasn't cleared the final hurdle in concussion protocol, but playing tonight is still possible. That was his last tweet about 25 minutes ago.
Yeah, that's murky. Everything's murky right now.
And that means those late games that you might not know. Curry could be a scratch. Great. I feel.
And there aren't going to be many replacements if you're on a late game swap site that allows you to put somebody in. There aren't really many good replacements in these late games, to be able to work something out. So it could be tough.
As far as tonight goes, I guess I'll be checking my phone while I'm at the movie theater, trying to get some out. But with those pieces of news, also Matthew Dellavedova. I love saying that name. Matthew Dellavedova is starting against the Pelicans on basically. I guess C.J. Miles is out. Was it a calf strain that he had? Something like that.
I know he only played 2 minutes of the last game before departing with injury. I'm not sure what it is, though.
Dellavedova is a guy that I really enjoyed watching at St. Mary's. I actually got to watch him in person play and absolutely destroy Vanderbilt at home. And it was he was just hitting everything. He's one of those high energy guys. I don't know. I feel a little bit awkward saying gym rat because I think there's a stereotype to gym rats. Gym rats means basically white, and a white guard is a gym rat. So yeah, he is definitely in the gym rat. But do you give him any sort of credence tonight across the industry? Drew, I'll start with you.
I'm not that excited about him. I mean, the thing that I'm more interested to see is how, if Dion Waiters is still in the starting lineup as the shooting guard and Dellavedova is just playing the small forward. Because if they're saying Dellavedova is replacing Miles, as Miles has been taking minutes at both shooting guard and small forward. So it's kind of what minutes there are going to be left for Waiters. That's the thing that makes me a little bit nervous. But Waiters, I think, the price is way down. And on non-efficiency sites, I mean, the guy shoots a ton. He averages 13 shots in 28 minutes in his career. So you've got an opportunity there. And Waiters is the guy that, he can fill it up on any given night. So I think he's a really good tournament play. And I think if Dellavedova is starting in place of Waiters, I think that'll make him an even better tournament play because I think people will be even further off the scent of Dion Waiters. Now, I wouldn't trust Waiters in a cash game, especially on an efficiency site, personally, but I think he's the ideal type of tournament play because when he's right, it's big performances.
Dave, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm with Drew, really. I mean, he played 30 minutes last game. Look, he shot 8 for 31 over his past 3 outings. Waiters I'm referring to. But, yeah, in a GPP, he's the kind of guy that could give you that production because he's liable to explode when given the opportunity. And he's going to need to shoot tonight. Yeah. Dellavedova, for him, though, I'd much rather play someone like Livingston, who I know is going to be more involved and we'll certainly see 30 minutes, 35 minutes, going to fire off at least 10 shots, get the assists up. So, because Williams has been ruled out already. So, with me, I prefer to go with someone safer like that. But Waiters, yeah, I agree with Drew. He's definitely a GPP candidate on sites where he's cheap because his salary's plummeted on several sites right now.
You mentioned the Livingston news as far as guys that you might feel comfortable with, obviously with Darren being out again tonight. Is there any other significant news that you guys have seen that is going to affect tonight's games?
Go ahead, Drew.
The Livingston news is the big one. I'm waiting on a couple others. Sean Marion is a game time decision. And look, that game with Utah has big time blowout potential, whether Marion plays or whether he doesn't play, which opens up options for the bench players to potentially get more run. I think with Marion, a lot of people will focus on Jai Crowder. I've got another Dallas bench player that I like as a super sexy pick for a draft street qualifier tonight, and that's Shane Larkin, who I think is priced at just over 5,000. I don't think a lot of people will be on him. Maybe some people that are watching this will be on him, but he produced a lot in limited minutes. So the Marion situation is something I'm watching, and then obviously Philadelphia as well with Thaddeus Young, because with Thaddeus Young out last game, Spencer Hawes went nuts, and I think that's another good opportunity for Turner and Hawes to hog a bunch of stats if Thaddeus Young is out. So those are the two kind of up in the air, along with Gordon Hayward, that I'm still really waiting on. The other one that emerged with some clarity was Eric Bledsoe sounds really doubtful. He didn't even make it through shoot-around today. So I think you got to feel good about Gerald Green, got to feel good about Goran Dragic in that matchup against Charlotte, who's been better defensively this year, but they get Al Jefferson back tonight, which makes them way worse defensively, especially in the pick and roll. Really good situation for Goran Dragic tonight.
Also hearing Chris Kaman doubtful, open up more minutes for Jordan Hill.
That's where I was going.
Your thoughts on that, Dave?
Yeah, the guy's already playing fantastic basketball, so this only makes matters better. I mean, Mike D'Antoni, regardless of Hill playing around 30 minutes per game over his last 4 contests, it's still difficult to trust that guy with the way that he's been erratic with the rotation. But with Kaman doubtful, yeah, it's going to be, everything. I'll go for Hill tonight. And Gerald Green, he's another option. He put up, I think, 23 points last game. And Dragic, without Bledsoe, he's a great option. Last year he was phenomenal as the main man in Phoenix. I think he had 11 of Phoenix's first. Oh, he had the first 11 points for Phoenix on Wednesday, so he's playing better. He looks healthy. But yeah, I think Jordan Hill's the real winner here with Kaman out. He could see 35, 37 minutes per game tonight, and he's producing more than a fantasy point per minute in his last 4 games. So I would certainly pay for him, even though you might not have to. He's 6,200 on FanDuel. That's a steal. That's an absolute steal. Nene is 5,900. There's some real pricing quirks on FanDuel this week or today that you need to take advantage of. Anthony Davis is 1,500 cheaper than Kevin Love, and he's outproduced him in the past week by leaps and bounds. So just guys like that. I know I'm kind of off topic there, but there's a lot of things to take advantage of with the injuries as well.
Well, I mean, sometimes we feel like we're off topic, but that's really the key. We talked about last night on the NFL show with NBA. It's a grind, and what it does is you basically have to assess news and see how it kind of affects, and that's what the good players are. That's what they do, and so that's also why these shows are really important, and why Twitter is really important, and why lineup alerts are really important. Drew, in case you're just now tuning in, it is now 4 Eastern. If you're watching this on our YouTube channel, the recorded version, then it's obviously not that time. But my name is Soccer Dave, and this is the Insiders TV show. We also have with us Dave Loughran, who does the Friday article for us. Laffy D. Laffy, is it _D or is it D_? Did I mess it up on the screen?
_D.
Okay, I got it. So he's this guy is just super sharp. Another guy that you guys know at Drew Dinkmeyer on Twitter. And not Drew Dinkenmeyer, as Davis calls him, but he is with Roto Experts, rotoexperts.com, and they have a service that is pretty cool with their updates and their cheat sheets and their article as well. I'm guessing that the article is already out today, Drew.
It's been sent to editorial. Our cheat sheets have been published today, but I'm waiting on the editorial email that it's been published, so it should be up shortly.
Very nice. And so that's today. We're just talking NBA, and if you have a question for us, feel free to ask it in the chat, and also hit us up on Twitter. We love answering questions. As far as games that you're looking to target tonight, what's like the big game that you're looking to target as far as players go, Dave?
There's a lot of games, but I like the Washington Toronto game, but for one reason only, and that's because a lot of the players are severely underpriced on every site. So it's less the point total on that and more how many players available should easily exceed value. I don't know about Ariza, Drew. I don't know if he's out. I haven't seen anything on him yet. But Martell Webster would be another phenomenal option. He's cheap. Nene is cheap everywhere. John Wall, he's struggling with his shot, but his assist totals are up. Brad Beal has 25 points or more in 3 straight games. So there's a lot of options. Rudy Gay's another one. He's priced way below Paul George everywhere, but he's outproducing him over the past week. This guy, look, he's a gamble, but he's shooting almost 450 from 45% from the field over his last 5 games. And he's priced, in the upper mid range. I put in the FanDuel article. He's an excellent GPP play today. He might be my favorite GPP play because of his upside. So that game, although last time I checked, I think the over/under is only 192, but there's enough guys in there in the starting lineups that will produce tonight and really pay off their salaries in spades.
Drew?
I come at it from a little bit of a different perspective than a lot of the people in the industry. I don't really look at games. I don't really look at totals. I look a little bit at spreads to try to gauge how close the game's going to be. But like tonight, I like a couple Spurs, and that's going to be a low total game. I don't even know what the total is, but I'm assuming San Antonio Memphis is going to be a real low total game.
184, sure.
Yeah, it's because I generally in the past I've played on a lot of efficiency sites, so the volume doesn't matter as much to me if a guy's not an efficient player. Obviously on FanDuel and DraftKings you need to worry about that stuff and you need to pay attention to it. But a lot of times those high over/under games are also correlated with high priced players. There's also not a lot of value in those players, so you kind of get sucked into some traps. Now it works out when Monta Ellis and Dirk Nowitzki shoot 70% from the field. But if they shoot, their normal, 45 to 48%, maybe it doesn't work out as well. So I don't pay as much attention to totals as I do in other sports with basketball, because really in other sports, all your points are coming from scoring activities. In basketball, not all your points are coming from scoring activities. They're coming from rebounds, from steals, from blocks, from things that sometimes sloppy games can also have a lot of. So I don't stress the totals as much as a lot of other people do out in the industry.
See, I feel like my play this year has been better than last year, and I think it's important to kind of evaluate. I mean, I'm sure most people, judging like how they looked at things a year ago, can see like the difference, just how things have evolved. I didn't look at totals or any Vegas odds last year. This year, I have because I feel like it does help me kind of get an adequate grasp on where Vegas is at as far as handicappers are concerned. Like you said, Drew, the spread is probably the most important. The other thing though is seeing where like the over/under on the low end. The high end is all good. On the low end though, those are games that typically you've got to be a prime time player in that matchup and have to be getting a lot of minutes. And that's another thing is minutes. I definitely think that minutes is more important than the spread or even the total goes.
Sure.
One thing on the totals I want to say there also is it kind of depends on what type of player you're looking for, right? So like a high total game, if you're looking for guards or scorers, that's fine. I think that makes sense. But if you're looking for bigs in a high total game that get the majority of their points off rebounds and blocks and different things like that, that pace might hurt the bigs. So I think too often people get too focused on the totals and less focused on kind of what type of game situation fits an individual player.
That's a good point. Another thing to consider with the totals is if you're dealing with value plays. When you're dealing with a low-end value play that's not typically going to get the same amount of minutes, when you see a higher over-under, you're thinking, all right, well, this might allow him, to provide more points tonight just because it's a faster-paced game. So when I do look at value plays, I'd like for the totals to be higher because I like to believe that it allows them to provide more points in the long run, given that they're a gamble anyway.
Right, and we also have. I think last year I didn't factor in pace at all, like I should have, and was strictly. Last year was strictly kind of spreadsheets and just it went off of others' projections, and I feel like this year I have a more confident grasp on how I want my lineups constructed, especially across the different sites. One of the questions that I received yesterday, and some people like to ask this, is how do you play across multiple sites? And that is, I think that one of the things that people don't talk about enough is you have to have an eye for value, or you have to have an eye for salaries and lineup construction. It is a skill, and it's difficult for people to go from a site like FanDuel to a site like DraftKings or Draft Street, and three sites in one night with the different salaries because you're playing different people. For instance, on Wednesday, I had a pretty good night on Draft Street. I was able to win the Draft Street basketball qualifier on FanDuel. I got taken to the cleaners. Thank you, Channing Frye. So I may have won like 2 out of 140 matchups, and that's not exaggeration. That is for
better than one.
So
right?
yes, but I think that there definitely is. You have to kind of practice and develop that eye for skill or for lineup construction. So that's kind of what I would add to the conversation. Let's get back to the night. As far as cheap players, Drew, you mentioned Loughran. He's a guy that I really have liked watching the past 2 days or past 2 games. He really didn't get a whole lot of run 2 games ago because they were just kind of easing him back in to that game. I think it was against Philly, but then they got the Rockets, and you messaged me as far as Calderon will never meet value there. As far as a point guard, and it's true. I mean, Loughran looked really sharp there. Any other cheap guys that you're looking at? I'll start with you, Dave.
I think I already mentioned all of them, really. Trey Burt is a guy that I think could provide decent value because he's near minimum salary, if not minimum salary on most sites. He's 4,600 on DraftKings, which is a little much. I can't trust him for that much because with only 8 positions in that lineup. But yeah, I like him. I think Livingston can provide you with decent points. I mean, he does have a limited ceiling, but at the same time, he's cheap. I think everyone else we really mentioned. Gerald Green's another one. He's going to start if Bledsoe's out and play 35 minutes. So his peripherals have been struggling a little bit lately, but as long as you can put 20 points on the board for me, I'm okay.
I mean, just to kind of recap, Jordan Hill is another guy, Gerald Green, just taking up some of that injury situation. Someone asked earlier what we thought about Mike Dunleavy there for Chicago. I'll go with Drew as our resident Bulls expert as far as what you feel on Dunleavy. I mean, he's got to have a lot of points for you to consider him, correct?
Yeah, I mean, he'll probably do what he did last night. And so, like, if you're on, like, I don't know, DraftKings, he's pretty cheap. He'd probably be fine there. But I mean, there's other guys that I'm more interested in today. In the Loughran thing, to be very specific, that's a Draft Street like tournament play. I don't think that's a play that you can consider anywhere else across the industry because it's a play that's geared towards a tight salary and he's really cheap. There's everywhere else soft salary caps. There's no point in messing around with Loughran. But some other cheap guys like Luke Ridnour deserves a look on a lot of sites, especially on DraftKings where he's shooting guard eligible as well. Love getting point guards in a shooting guard slot on DraftKings because you have more upside potential there going against the fastest paced and arguably the worst defensive team in the league. in Philadelphia. Now they'll be better with Michael Carter-Williams back, and that's a tougher matchup for Ridnour. But Brandon Knight's doubtful, so he's probably going to get his 30 minutes again. And he's pretty cheap around the industry. He's another guy like Livingston that I'm looking at. Alan Anderson will probably benefit from Jason Terry being out. If you want, a non-efficiency site gunner, that's a minimum price guy. He could fit the mold there. Reggie Evans is cheap on FanDuel and on DraftStream, and he's terrible. But the one thing he does is rebound, right? And Minnesota gives up the third most rebounds in the league per game. Everybody thinks of Minnesota as this great rebounding team because of Kevin Love. But they give up quite a bit of rebounds because they play a high pace. So, he's another guy that minimum price, there's no upside there. But for a cash game for 50-50, if you need salary relief. Now, again, on FanDuel, we talked about all the power forward value with Jordan Hill, with Anthony Davis, with, David Lee, with all these different guys. I probably wouldn't waste a roster spot on Reggie Evans there. But on DraftStreet, 5K, 5.7, that's in play.
I'm still trying to figure out. 1 second. I'm still trying to figure out how he went 11 minutes. I think it was 11 minutes without a rebound in the first half on Wednesday. I just don't know how Reggie Evans goes that long without a rebound. He finished okay. Andre Blatch was another guy that people are asking about. He had a really good game, and he's someone that I actually have enjoyed watching this season play. So if his salary is still down, he might be another candidate. Dave, I think I interrupted you earlier. What were you going to say?
Oh, no, you're fine. I just wanted to bring up real quick that on FanDuel, Steve Blake's 5,900. That's a steal right there. This guy is producing off the charts right now for what we expected his capabilities to be, and he's the kind of guy that I would have no trouble throwing in. Like we talked about, fast-paced games. You have LA at home where they play much better, where they put up more points against the Golden State team that loves to run the court. So, yeah, I think 5,900, he's not your typical value play on other sites, but, man, he frees up a ton of space tonight. Him and Jordan Hill at 6,200 in a fast-paced game. Yeah, they could really free up a lot of cap space to fit an Anthony Davis or a Paul George in there.
Definitely. As far as must plays on the expensive end, who are some must plays that just guys that you need to get in your roster? For me on Wednesday, it was Paul George, and I just want to go on the record while we're talking about this and say sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. And when overtime happens to a guy who is like who's a go-to player, it is like daily fantasy gold. It's like college football overtime with like a quarterback that throws a few touchdowns there. So obviously we can't predict overtime, but just wanted to add that in there. It's always good when you get overtime out of a guy that you're relying heavily on. Drew, who are some studs that you really enjoy tonight?
Yeah, I would never call any stud a must play because it really depends on site and on pricing when you get around the stud guys. But on soft caps, I think Kevin Love's a great play tonight. I kind of warned this on Wednesday when Love didn't hit value. He's been really bad on back-to-backs this year. And, not a back-to-back tonight. Brooklyn's 27th in defensive efficiency against power forwards. They're not a great rebounding team. So I think it's a good matchup for Love. The one thing you have to worry about there is the blowout potential. The Nets are playing with like 7 or 8 healthy guys, and like only half of them are NBA players. So there's big time blowout potential there. Other high price guys that I would consider: LaMarcus Aldridge, Kyrie Irving, Anthony Davis. We talked about earlier. All those guys are guys that kind of around the industry are high priced, but there's enough of a discount that I can consider deploying them.
Yeah, and you talked about a lot of those guys, like you mentioned earlier, are your power forwards, your post players, your power forwards, and your centers on those sites that have multi-position eligibility. So that's why tonight is looking like one of those nights where you can go cheap on your guard play and even some of your forwards, and then stack up some of the big men. If all things are equal, Dave, are you going Kevin Love or Anthony Davis tonight?
I'm going Anthony Davis. And in most cases, they aren't equal. Actually, he's priced significantly cheaper on several sites than Kevin Love. And just to throw a couple numbers out there at you, he's averaging 6 blocks per game at home this year. 36 of his 45 blocks on the season have come at home, right? He has 5 blocks in 5 straight home games, 6 plus blocks in 4 of 6 home games. So, and on FanDuel specifically, he's outproducing Kevin Love by 13 fantasy points over the past 4 games. So there's no reason for me to ignore that tonight. He's a fantastic play at home. He's just, I don't know what it is, what he does at home. I mean, he had 6 blocks in the first quarter against Philadelphia last week. He's just, I love Anthony Davis at home tonight.
I'll tell you what it is. It's their scorer. It's their official scorer is the most home-oriented, stat-friendly official scorer.
I'll take it.
And I've written about this a couple times, and people have kind of questioned me looking for like data on it. Look at Drew Holiday's assist totals at home versus on the road. Look at Anthony Davis's block totals at home and on the road. And the two most subjective stats in terms of a scorer's impact are on assists and blocks. And it's this official score. So I think that's a good point to bring up, that Anthony Davis, because I always talk about with Drew Holiday and with assists and with point guards in New Orleans in general, but it's with blocks too. And so high volume block players in New Orleans are guys that you want to consider, because they give away a lot of blocks and a lot of assists, a lot of cheap ones.
Yeah, and look, I'll take an objective view on that. I have zero problem with their score, helping them out. Cleveland's allowing the 7th most blocks to opposing power forwards this year anyway. So I think regardless of the score, even though I'm pretty okay with that, I think it's definitely he's a favorable option tonight.
Yeah, I like him, and I was surprised at his line that he had on Wednesday. I didn't until I kind of looked at everything afterwards. Not a whole lot of people were on him. A lot of people were on Love and Chris Paul. Those were the 2 studs that people targeted. But he had a pretty nice night, and I think he's in line for another nice night. Let's take a look though at the pick 5 on draft day. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them in chat. While I pull this up, Dink, your thoughts on Andrew Bogut tonight? He's been playing a lot better, especially he's getting all the minutes he can handle now that Jermaine O'Neal is out of the lineup.
I'd like him a lot more if Steph Curry is out, and here's why. And that seems really weird, right? Because Steph Curry's a guard and Bogut's a center, so how does that really impact things? Well, when Curry's out, that creates more minutes for Harrison Barnes at the 3, and that forces them to stay big with Bogut at the 5. And, Dave mentioned earlier that Chris Kaman is doubtful for this game. That's another big that the Lakers wouldn't be able to throw in there that would necessarily keep Bogut on the floor. So I think Bogut is a really, really good tournament play because his price is still down. Like DraftKings, he's really cheap. FanDuel, he's pretty cheap. Draft Street, he's fairly priced. I think he's a good tournament play, but I wouldn't really trust him in my cash games just because you've got a couple different options to where this game doesn't favor Bogut. You've got D'Antoni going really small and the Warriors adjusting, and you've got potentially the Warriors blowing out LA like they did in the first game when they won by 31. Now, it's in LA, so there's probably a little bit less chance of a blowout. But those are 2 potential scenarios that impact Bogut's playing time significantly. That's a minutes risk to me, and that adds more variance, so I'd rather consider him for a tournament.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point. However, if Curry's out, I'm not sure it will make much of a difference because, look, he played 43 minutes last game. So even if Curry is out and Kaman is out, he's still going to see upwards of 35, 36 minutes, which should be plenty enough to produce a couple putbacks and 10-plus blocks or 10-plus rebounds, and a handful of blocks. So with 35, 36 minutes, I don't see any problem throwing him in there, especially with his salary being relatively cheap on the majority of sites.
Yeah, I think those minutes are safe if Curry's out, like you said. I think the minutes are definitely safe if Curry's out. I think they become in question if Curry's in.
Sure, he could see 25, 26 minutes if Curry comes back tonight, and they have. Yeah, I agree. And that's the concern with him all the time, when Curry's in there.
Well, yeah, and you also have the minutes. I mean, 43 minutes. He had nothing left in the tank on Wednesday night. He at the end he was feeling it, and I wonder if that's even going to come into play tonight. But I feel like he's, especially like you said, if Curry's out, that he's a good play in 30 minutes. He's a lot better defender than what people think, also, and can get rebounds. So I don't mind him at all. Let's take a look at this pick 5. There you go. This pick 5, and you have John Wall versus Kyrie Irving. Drew.
I'll take Kyrie tonight, and I like both options. But again, I like that New Orleans official score with the assist, and so I think Kyrie's going to get a little bit of an inflated assist total tonight.
Yeah, I'll go John Wall because in terms of safe play, Kyrie's the furthest thing from a safe play. I mean, there's no one that'll scare you more than Kyrie. Put up 5 turnovers and 2 points in the first half and then blow up for 57 points in the second half. So, I don't know, man. My blood pressure isn't, I can't handle that right now. I'll go with John Wall and count on the rest of the team around him shooting well again, giving him those assists. Let him score 15, 16 points, put up double-digit assists and a couple steals. And, he's a safe play for me tonight.
Apparently, when I was going to that shot, Basketball Jones was playing on there, but I'll go with John Wall also. Al Horford versus LaMarcus Aldridge.
No, that's easy. Sorry. You want me to go first? All right, I'll
go for
it. I got to go Aldridge in this game. Al Horford's been he is really struggling lately. I put something in about Al Horford. I don't want to take up too much time, but he's averaging 11 points over his last 3 games, 22 fantasy points over his last 3 games, less than 6 rebounds. That's not Al Horford-esque. So, yeah, we're definitely dealing with a guy right here that needs to find his rhythm again, and you can't trust him tonight when you have LMA on the other side. That's a very consistent power forward. He doesn't get as much credit as he should. That guy posts 30, 35 fantasy points consistently on a game-to-game basis.
I think it's pretty close personally, but I mean the comments Dave mentioned with Horford are legitimate, and I wrote this in our daily fantasy rundown today. The big problem with Horford is there's occasional times during the course of the season where he loses his willingness to shoot the ball. And that's the big challenge with Horford, is that he loses his aggressiveness, and it translates to less daily fantasy points. So he's had 3 straight games where he shot the ball less than 10 times. So if you're going to take Horford tonight, and I don't think he's a bad play, I wrote him up as a recommendation, I think you have to have some level of faith or confidence that he's going to be more aggressive tonight. I do think Aldridge is the safer play between the two. And Aldridge, not a lot of people like that revenge factor. Aldridge, way back when, was originally drafted by the Bulls and traded on draft night. So he's usually had some good games against the Bulls, and they've usually had some trouble defending.
Yeah. Al Horford, Drew, you and I talked about this the other night. I'm done with him until he can put up some better numbers and better minutes. Even, they were down like by 16, and coach didn't even put him in those last few minutes of, or like most of the fourth quarter. So that can be a little misleading with how low his numbers were. But even when he was getting the minutes, even when Paul Millsap was out, I had him rostered. He had tons of opportunity there, and he just didn't produce. And so, go ahead.
He goes through these spurts during the season where he just lacks aggressiveness, and when his price comes down along with it, I'm willing to bet, because really it's up to him. It's if he's going to be aggressive offensively. In the first 6-7 games of the season, he was averaging like 17, 18 shots a game. And when he plays like that, he's one of the best daily fantasy players in the league. So now that his price has come down a little bit, I'm still willing to test the waters. But I agree that there's more elevated risk associated with Horford than there is with Aldridge, certainly.
Yeah, before this recent 4 or 5 game stretch of putrid basketball, this guy was averaging, I think, 2 more points than his career high, more rebounds, more blocks, more steals, and he was averaging 3 less minutes per game.
Yeah.
So clearly the potential's there. The upside is there. Horford generally is one of the most consistent big men in basketball. And I always feel comfortable with him, which is why I was very surprised to see him pulling down 2 rebounds, 5 rebounds, 15 points. It's just very uncharacteristic of him.
Definitely, we're having some issues with your guys' video. It seems like the camera is turning
Yeah.
on and off. I'm not sure what's up there. I would agree that as far as opportunity goes, LaMarcus Aldridge would be the play over Horford, and that is an interesting angle about the revenge factor because I think in basketball it comes into play more than any other sport because you really have kind of control over what you're doing. Al Jefferson versus Sean Livingston. This is an interesting one. Dink, I'll start with you.
It's Livingston. I mean, Jefferson is going to return tonight, but he's going to be on some sort of minutes limit. And I mean, Phoenix isn't a bad matchup for Jefferson, but if he's only going to play 18 to 24 minutes, I'll take Livingston every time. I think that's Scott being sly and thinking most people will think Jefferson is the easy pick because of the points per game and because he's got a bigger name. But I think Livingston's the easy pick there.
We have go ahead, Dave.
I Sly or not, I still think Jefferson's going to outproduce Livingston tonight. In a pick five game, I do. I think even if he plays 25 minutes, he's the kind of guy that can put stats up in quick succession. So, yeah, I'm still going to go with Jefferson. Livingston can throw a dud up on you, and it's just I'm more fond of playing a guy that stands under the rim and can collect the garbage. Livingston is going to have to work harder for his points tonight.
So I'll fully admit that I haven't researched as far as the minutes that Jefferson's going to get tonight, but I have to agree probably with Dink is that even though he is playing at home against Phoenix, I think I would still rather go with Livingston because he's had the games that Darren hasn't been in there this season. He's had a really good start to the season, and so that's why on a site especially that I'm just not sure. I'm just not sure I would feel comfortable in taking Al Jefferson there. Michael Carter Williams versus Derrick Rose. Do we even want to get on the Derrick Rose train at all? Just please tell me you guys are going with MCW tonight.
Oh, yeah. Derrick Rose made 7 of his first 10 shots and then missed 8 of his last 10 last night. The guy, you can't trust him right now. You just can't. On a back-to-back, a West Coast back-to-back road trip, no thanks. I know Carter Williams struggled a little bit, had 6 or 7 turnovers in his first game back, but he's shaking the rust off. He's going to be fine. And actually, surprisingly, Milwaukee actually allows the least fantasy points per game to opposing point guards, which I was not expecting at all. But I don't think that'll make a difference. As I put in the FanDuel column, MCW is averaging a fantasy point per every minute played at home this year. He's going to produce more, and he's got the peripheral stats to boost that type of production. So I'm going MCW all the way in this one.
Drew, your turn to rant on Derrick Rose.
Let's just move on. Please.
Marc Gasol versus Zach Randolph. Dink, I'll start with you.
Gasol. I mean, Randolph kind of gets dominated by Tim Duncan in these matchups. And I know Duncan switches off between Gasol and Randolph, but usually Duncan's on Randolph and they put Splitter on Gasol. And check out some of Duncan's numbers against Memphis the last 2 years. They are out of control. He averaged 1.24 FanDuel points per minute 2 years ago and 1.18 FanDuel points per minute against Memphis last year.
I'm back. Did I lose you?
I can't even see you. So.
No, I'm sorry. My wife got locked out of the house, so I had to go unlock it real quick. Fair enough, though. Did you guys decide on Gasol or Randolph?
We went Gasol.
Drew, yeah, I would say with Gasol, too. When you're dealing with a tough matchup like this, I'd much rather take a guy that can provide excellent peripheral stats where, Zebo is generally points, rebounds, and he can provide a lot of them. But someone like Gasol that can give you 18, 10, 8, 3 blocks, 3 steals, I'll take that any day because he's the kind of guy that's going to produce in any matchup.
I would agree there. Gasol he's looked really good as of late. Let's take some questions, some last minute questions. Nene or Jordan Hill?
Uh, Jordan Hill, no doubt.
Jordan Hill. Yeah, I'll go Jordan Hill as well.
Boozer over Noah? Question mark. And Mayo or Butler on DraftKings?
Ugh.
I like Noah over Boozer. Noah, the minutes are more guaranteed, and he has a more diversified stat line, kind of what Dave was just talking about with Gasol versus Randolph. So I'll go Noah. His minutes are climbing. He's starting to look healthier, and he's underpriced around the industry.
Yeah, his minutes are climbing, but I worry about a back to back. Not to say that they're going to decline too much, but there's a possibility that he plays 29, 30 minutes. But he did say he's feeling a lot better. And again, I like a guy that can give you numbers across the board and fill up the box score. So I'll definitely take him tonight. And I guess Mayo. I'm really indifferent on that one.
It was Mayo versus who, Dave?
Butler, right?
Yes.
I'll take Mayo over anybody. Let's put that out there. I'm huge on OJ Mayo tonight.
Oh man, you like your Mayo. All right, we like that.
He was the featured player in our headline today.
Oh, very nice. Kemba Walker or Kyle Lowry?
Kemba for me.
Kemba based on upside alone.
Yeah, I like Kemba, and even both those guys had a great night on Wednesday nights. But I would probably go with Kemba and his upside. He's had a pretty good start to the season. Let's see. We had. How do you guys like Greg Monroe?
I don't. I think he can really produce. He has so much potential out there. He's very talented, but you have Drummond, Smith, Monroe. It's a constant battle for rebounds and points. And he started the season off well, but if you look at his stats, they're declining. And he's really, right now it looks like 30 fantasy points is his ceiling. He had 7 turnovers in his last game. I'd stay away from him tonight. I think there's better options out there. On sites where where he can be played as a center, I would take Spencer Hawes over him without question against Milwaukee tonight.
Dink, thoughts on Monte Ellis?
He's fine on like FanDuel. DraftKings, he's expensive. He's a little bit expensive on FanDuel. I mean, the thing is, Monte takes advantage of really easy matchups, and Utah is a pretty easy matchup, so he'll probably pour it in. I just don't think that game's going to be close. So I think you're paying for 3/4 of Monta, and I'm not sure that that's the route you want to go. I will say this on Monroe, because I'm a value investor at heart, and on a lot of sites his price hasn't come down, but like on Draft Street, I think he's like 12 or 13K. Like that's really cheap for Greg Monroe. So I will have him in some of my lineups on Draft Street tonight.
Oh, Drew, you're killing me. You're killing me with Horford and now Greg Monroe.
I mean, I'm all about packing as much expected value into your lineup as possible. And to do that, you have to take guys who haven't always been playing as well of late. At least you have to do that on the dynamic pricing sites. Maybe you don't have to do that on FanDuel, where they change a guy's price once a month. But on like Draft Street or Draft Day, you have to take advantage of price declines, and they happen when guys aren't playing well.
You're right. You got to take advantage of the cheap plays. I completely agree. But just keep in mind to the people listening out there, he is a huge risk despite his salary. It doesn't matter how cheap he is. I mean, but yeah, if he's cheap enough to really all that matters is how much is he going to need to meet value. So if his prices come down and now he only needs 30 fantasy points to meet value, sure, he's a great play, but not on sites where he's going to cost you 16, 17% of salary like he had before. And now you need 40, 45 fantasy points, to really get the full value out of him, and you're in a hole. So yeah, it really all does depend. It's all relative in terms of pricing, expected value, all of that. It's relative to the site that you're playing on.
Definitely, and hopefully people they're watching can see that, and we're just preaching to the choir there for them. I will say, as far as Monroe, Where he is most effective is when Drummond gets in foul trouble. So if Drummond gets in early foul trouble, he would be an excellent GPP play. But I'm a big Andre Drummond fanboy. Let's get to some questions real quick. I mean, rapid fire. I just want 1 or 2 word responses from you guys. And
Got it.
Drew, you will be the first one, followed by Dave, followed by me. Let's get it. Larkin or Allen Anderson?
Allen Anderson.
Allen Anderson.
Allen Anderson. Teague or Jennings?
Teague.
Jennings.
I will go with Teague as well. And we had another question, Wall or Irving. I think we already answered that. Me and Dave are on Wall, and Drew is on Irving. Gay and Jordan Hill, or Paul George and Andre Blatch on FanDuel? Gay and Hill, or George and Blatch?
It's pretty close. I'd go Gay and Hill, but I don't feel strongly about it.
I'm going Gay and Hill too, but keep in mind if it's a GPP or a head-to-head.
He said it was for a cash game. So with that in mind, I would definitely go Gay and Hill, but I agree with the upside, I think, would be on the other side of that. Let's see. We have George, Aldridge, Gay, all 16-6 on Draft Street. How would you rank them?
For me, Aldridge, George, distant third would be Rudy Gay on Draft Street, where they deduct for missed field goals.
Yes.
Yeah, good point. Any other site, I'm putting Gay second and Aldridge third because of his upside if they don't dock points for missed field goals.
Yeah, Rudy Gay is perfectly capable of going 7 for 25, and we don't like that at all on
That's only -9.
Draft Street. Well, then you have all the free throws and turnovers and everything else.
He's playing well though.
He is. He's just very capable of missing shots. I would rank Paul George ahead of Aldridge. I would rank them in that order: George, Aldridge, and Gay. Cantor or Favors?
Are they priced similarly anywhere? I mean, I'd say Cantor because I think he's a better value, and I think he's more likely to be around the rim. If Favors has to guard Dirk at all, that pulls Favors away from the rim. Dirk doesn't get shots blocked because he's a jump shooter, so it hurts Favors on multiple ends with block shots on the rebound. So I'll go Cantor. But if their price was the same, I'd be more inclined to go Favors just because he's a better player.
Yeah, it depends on how much they're priced. But I do still think Favors has more upside. Cantor's kind of been a disappointment. Him and Jonas Valanciunas, God, I hate that, have been disappointments this year. And Favors really hasn't been bad. He's better at home, a lot better at home, but he's been pretty good.
Both of you are breaking the 1 or 2 word response.
Sorry, that was my fault. I started that.
Both of you into show timeout. Carroll or Webster?
If Ariz is in, it's Carroll. If Ariz is out, it's Webster.
Webster.
I would go Webster as long as Ariza is out. I think Ariza is going to be out tonight. Turner or Mayo? Drew, you're on Mayo, I'm guessing.
Well, wait. I mean, I would take Turner over Mayo if price is the same. But price isn't the same anywhere. But just in terms of scoring versus one another, Turner will probably outscore Mayo.
Turner's more consistent. Yeah, you know what you're getting with Turner this season, which is a surprise. But I'm going Turner.
I thought I would get to pigeonhole you into that pick, but no, I would also go Turner. Lee or Dragic?
David Lee.
If Bledsoe's out, Dragic.
I would go.
Oh, what the hell am I talking about? I'm sorry, David Lee.
I'd go David Lee as well. Green or Ridnour, kind of again, I think both of you will agree that it depends on if Bledsoe is playing or not.
Well, I think it depends on site scoring more than anything. Like I would rather have Ridnour on an efficiency site than Gerald Green, but on a non-efficiency site, I'd probably rather have Gerald Green.
Paul Gasol, a solid play. I think he is. Is Ridnour in every DK lineup bad? I don't think so. And And then we also had a thanks, guys. I think that's going to do it. I think that we've covered enough. If you have questions, though, feel free to ask them in the chat, and feel free to get us on Twitter. Drew, tell people where they can reach you.
Yeah, my Twitter handle is @DrewDinkmeyer. I will say this. I'm a little bit stingy on daily basketball responses just because I try to protect our subscribers' interests. So sometimes I'll hit you with a direct message as opposed to tweeting it out there publicly. But in these chats and stuff on this show, this is the best time to get me for lineup questions.
And Dave, they can always reach you at Laffy_D for your part in this. And then if you want to reach me, it's @SoccerDave. So I think that will... oh, no. Did I pause it? There we go. I think you guys know all about this. Alrighty, guys. Make sure you don't hurt nobody. Good show, guys. I really appreciate you being on, and join us on tonight. I may or may not be wearing lipstick, talking college football with Benjamin Pritchett, a.k.a. Natural Slugger. Check us out at InsidersDFS, FantasyInsiders.com, and you guys have a great weekend.